And when he presented that, I was like, yeah, this sounds fun. I started to like really enjoy the business side of things as I started working, because I'd never really worked. I'd just done like lawns and paper routes as a kid. Yeah. And I started to enjoy the business side of it and almost started to see it as like a game competition, like sports was for me, where you go, all right, what are we going to do next? And what are we going to do next? And how are we going to get better?
Daniel Doran's story is a great reminder of the importance of patience and having a long-term perspective in business. However, maintaining patience has not forced him to give up his ambition to grow. As an athlete, he was wired to constantly look for ways to improve and succeed. Combining patience and ambition, he has been able to go from working in construction to now buying and growing several blue-collar businesses. In this week's episode, he shares his story and the qualities that he thinks have enabled him to see that growth over the years. Welcome to Work is Good, a podcast where we aim to help people enjoy and excel at their work. We do this by having conversations about the beliefs, qualities, and habits that make that possible. We also start every episode with a brief housing market update and a mortgage question of the week. My name is Landon Buteau with Cleveland Street Mortgage, and I host this show with my dad, Chris Buteau, the owner and president at CSM. Please enjoy this week's episode. All right, Daniel, thanks for joining us this week. Appreciate it. Dad, we're going to start with general mortgage update.
Okay.
Same as usual. Anything new this week or similar?
Yeah, I mean, we're following
week?
on the heels of Powell's remarks last week. I think the markets or many people were hoping that they'd begin to signal the end to the increases in the federal funds rate, and they were disappointed because basically Powell communicated a strong commitment to continuing to increase rates until inflation gets down closer to the target of 2, and we're a long way from that. However, rates are still, like as of today, they're still below 6%. First-time home buyer can get in for, let's say 5.875, 5.933 APR. So rates are a lot better than they were 3 months ago. What's happening this week? We have the producers' inflation index coming out on Friday. And that, coupled with the fact that we're in Christmas week, it's a thin trading week, things can be pretty volatile. So I think people should just kind of be aware if they're actually on the cusp of locking or they have something they can lock. But overall, I think we're in a good spot, and I still think we can anticipate rates to go lower, but perhaps later next year.
Yeah, I have been kind of looking around like Zillow and just for friends mostly, just taking a look. And, Holly and I bought in September or August. And it seems like since then, listings, it's really hard to find anything in our kind of range of around the area of sub 500. And then in the last couple weeks, just looking around, it seems like there's more out there that's reasonable in terms of listings, and then combine that with lower rates, seems like the next couple months could be kind of a sweet spot there.
Yeah, no, totally.
But hard to say. Okay, we'll keep the mortgage question quick this week, which I'm going to make it the difference between, I got this confused a lot, and I think I have it pretty clear now, but the difference between getting pre-qualified and pre-approved if someone's going to get pre-qualified versus pre-approved. What's the difference there if they say they're pre-qualified? Or
Yeah, I mean, some of it's semantics. There aren't any technical definitions of those words. Okay. It's not like it's something where there's a authoritative reference. However, pre-qualified can be as simple as having a phone conversation with someone. So, if I talk to Danny on the phone, say, Danny, where do you work? What do you make? How much money do you have for this transaction? How do you think your credit is? Yeah. There's a level there that I've actually sort of pre-qualified him, but I haven't verified anything. Yeah. Now, depending on how honest he is, and then how complicated his situation is. If he's very straightforward, he's worked at Boeing forever, and we're just using his salary, and he's got all the money sitting in a savings account, there's no real complexity there. Now, I'd still verify that to get to a pre-approved level. Then I would pull his credit, because even someone who's being completely honest doesn't really know what their credit score is, right? You can go to Credit Karma or your credit card company will give you numbers, but they aren't mortgage scores. Yeah. And so you pull credit, And then especially if it's
Little bit of
someone who's
documentation.
self-employed, whose income is going to be a lot more complicated, who they won't know what an underwriter is going to tell them. They have no idea. They may have an idea of what their income is, and it may be very
Right.
accurate for their purposes, but they won't know what an underwriter is going to do with that. So then you get their documents, you review that, you verify that, you recalculate, you pull credit, then you run it through electronic underwriting. And that's the Fannie Mae engine that says, okay, if these data points are true, then we would approve this loan. And then you verify those data points, and that's where a human underwriter comes in
Yeah.
and verifies that. And so there's pre-qualified, could be as little as a phone conversation. There's pre-approval where you can run it through that, and then there's pre-underwritten, where then you say, okay, here underwriter, would you
We've
just
actually taken this
check
one,
off these points?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the strongest thing people look for. It's sometimes it's not that much more valuable than just a pre-approval
Sure.
if the person's straightforward. But if you have a complex person, that can help a lot to
Yeah.
just say, okay, we've got someone with variable income. It doesn't have to be self-employed. It could be just someone that works hourly at Walmart. But they work 30 hours one week and then 35 the next week and then 28 the following week. And so that's kind of hard to know too.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for that reason, you might want to get pre-underwritten. And then you write that on your pre-approval letter.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we will shift over to Daniel. We're going to get into a little bit of what he does and what they're doing well over at his company, which I think generally is blue collar. Is that accurate?
Yeah, actually, we
We'll
just
get there.
we just kind of
rebranded
it.
Okay.
We're just sticking with Doran Holdings because
Okay.
we couldn't get over the spelling. We were trying to spell it wrong because it was cheaper. Trying to save some money.
Were you KOLL?
Capital KAP.
Oh, I see.
So I just couldn't. I was like, nah, we're gonna switch it. We're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's funny because I was just, I kept typing blue collar in a text or something, and for some reason I had K going through
Yeah.
my head, but I kept saying C.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. So Daniel, we're going to just start with, just give us an overview of what you do, what your role is right now,
Yeah.
and what company you're involved with and what you guys do.
Yeah. So I started and have worked with Barrier Technologies back in 2013, and that was my main source of everything until this last year. So I just had that business, was growing it. That's a little bit of a longer story of how that came to be, but
And
that
then-
was my day-to-day role, was running that business. And then in 2022, I started to diversify a little bit, bought part of a gutter business, and then also bought a outdoor living space business down in Olympia. And
Okay.
so my day-to-day role now is just overseeing a handful of people who are running those businesses.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and what at Barrier Tech specifically, what was kind of your role there before you branched out?
Yeah, so realistically, when you first start a business, you do everything.
Yeah. So that was your
Yeah,
business, Barrier
yeah,
Tech.
and I started with my father-in-law,
Okay.
and then bought him out in 2017.
Okay.
That's when I really made the leap to go on my own. Basically, I decided to jump in, and from there, I was doing everything from 2017 probably to 2020,
Okay.
and then we hit the level where I could bring on some more key people to help.
Yeah.
But my role in the last few years has been specifically sales,
Okay.
and then just making sure that we have the hiring done that needs to happen to get the jobs done. And now I've kind of handed off those responsibilities to a couple key people
Gotcha.
for sales and then operations. So, yeah.
And what does that then relieve you to do?
So, and this is, I would say, probably what I'm best at is figuring out new things that we can go after.
Yeah.
Right. So I focus on figuring out new revenue streams within Barrier Technologies. For example, we bought a company that did fireproofing, and now we can do fireproofing. We're now looking at doing waterproofing. So I'm doing the research and then making connections and figuring out what we need to do, what equipment we need to do to buy, to then add a revenue stream and then hire some people to grow. So I'm more focused on growth with that business, and then with the other business, basically setting what are the growth trajectories and what can we do to kind of increase margins here and there.
Right.
So I'm more expansion and then also just making sure.
Strategic leadership.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how much of that is, if you're looking for growth opportunities, just day to day, what is it? Are you looking for companies out there? Are you
Yeah.
identifying what fits well with you guys?
So I'm a glutton for opportunities. So I'm on business broker websites, I have all the things emailed to me, so daily I'm scanning those for anything that could be a potential fit. I've talked to drywall companies, talked to, inspection companies, and start researching and looking at that. But day to day, it's looking at, where are we at cash-wise? What can we make happen? And then, for example, today, I was talking with one of our key guys about this other service that a company is asking us to do, and we started to do the math on how much it would take to get us set up. And so I'm more just exploring those opportunities.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm still putting out fires here and there.
Yeah.
So it's just, I do devote specific time, Tuesdays and Thursdays basically in the morning, to really scan through and do some research and figure out what I could do outside of Barrier Technologies. But Barrier Technologies is just meeting with key individuals and saying, hey, what opportunities are arising? Yeah. What can we go after? What can we do?
Yeah, so I want to get more into that and more into, because I think that's kind of where you're excited, what you want to, and I want to hear what things speak to you, what criteria you look for in companies. But just to get a general picture first, or I guess just a little bit more of the story, you gave us an overview. Can you describe a little bit more in detail of those decisions, of that process, of how you got into sales in the first place, and your story specifically over the years to get to the point where you're at right now?
Yeah, so...
what degree did you get in college? Where did you go to college?
Yeah, I was a sports ministry degree,
okay,
which is basically sports management. I wanted to play soccer, and so I went to this small Bible college that had a sports ministry degree, and mostly went to play soccer and have fun.
Yep. I got a sports management degree to coach soccer.
There you go.
Similar,
Same boat, and then, I got out, and my wife and I were dating. We weren't married, but then I met her dad. He offered me a job to come out and work here for him in the construction industry and just learn from him. He owned a business for a long time, and I made the move to do that. I thought I was going to coach soccer, and that's what I was going to do, but I decided to come out here and do that. And then through some unique circumstances, we had the opportunity to start the business doing fire stopping together. Okay. Which it's a guy we knew said he was retiring. Turns out he was not retiring. He's actually going to jail. And so we helped him finish some jobs so his wife could still get paid. Yeah. And then we started a new business. We didn't buy his business or anything. We just started a new business. Yeah. And my father-in-law and I were partners. I was still working for him, but we were partners. And
so what made you, because I could see that being, in that role and the role you were in, just kind of maybe work your way up through the years, and what triggered in your mind, I could actually, initiate something here? Were you the one that started, or did he come to you?
No, it's all, honestly, it's all my father-in-law who, he said, hey, this opportunity's here. Okay. Would you want to run with it? I don't have the bandwidth to basically do it himself. Okay. I could grind and do the stuff I needed to do to make it work. And I'm young and scrappy, and he was, hey, we could do this, we could not.
He was not.
He's at a place in life much farther along where he didn't need to do this, but he saw it as an opportunity, and I'm thankful that he did, and he offered me the opportunity to say, hey, let's do this together. You can do the grunt work, get going, and then I can help you get the infrastructure, and he had clients that we could then chase down, which is really helpful. Yeah. And that's awesome. That was, and when he presented that, I was like, this sounds fun. I started to really enjoy the business side of things as I started working, because I never really worked. I just done lawns and paper routes as a kid, and I started to enjoy the business side of it and almost started to see it as a game competition, like sports was for me, where you go, all right, what are we going to do next, and what are we going to do next, and how are we going to get better? Yeah. And so that was us working together. And then in 2016 there was this tension of, well, I work for him, and we're partners, and I want to grow this thing, and he's okay where he's at, but I want to grow this thing. And we basically just talked, and I went, hey, I would like to jump out on my own. I can't focus on the employee side for you. I want to build it. Can I buy you out? Because it's going to get more expensive to buy you out later if I build it. And so we basically said, let's draw a line in the sand. Let me buy you out. And we can just be father-in-law, son-in-law. We still have a lot of synergies. We still talk about work, but we don't have to be partners anymore. And it was great. Honestly, it was great for the relationship. Not that the relationship was bad, but it's just great that part of it was just clean now. It's hey, we're clean.
Makes sense.
But then that's when I really started to run. It was 2017, where it's okay, Now, if I don't do it, I don't eat.
Yeah.
Versus when I had a job still, I was like half growing it. I had the budget side. Now it's just like, it's all up to me. And that was the fun. That's when it started to get real fun. I think. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for filling that in. That's a neat story. Yeah, I mean, Dad's got a really easy foundation for me to come into, and I'm technically marketing, but he lets me fiddle with some business development ideas.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed it, and he has all the infrastructure in place and foundations in place, so I can just kind of fiddle when I can and run with things. So I get that. That's been fun. It's been a fun.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a game. It's like, how can we win? How can we improve? And and I love it. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How we went there.
Yeah, and honestly, just working with him was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was just we came to that point where it was, all right, how do we move forward if we're going to do this? I really want to go hard in this. Let's do it and let's figure it out. And then it was, it's been great. Like we're meeting next week to talk about, because we have similar pay structures and everything for our guys. So next week, he and I, actually Friday, we're meeting together to talk through, hey, 2022 or 2023 compensation plans for the guys. We want to have them pretty similar so that the guys are they all commingle and talk a decent amount.
Yeah.
And so we just make sure they're all aligned, and we talk about what sales are coming and what things are going.
Yeah.
Still work together a lot and have a lot of synergies, but it's good.
That's cool. Awesome. So I think you've hinted at kind of where your specialty is, what you do well, but is there something that stands out in your mind either at Doran Holdings? Is that right?
Yeah.
Or that you personally do that you think helps you guys succeed, especially?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was thinking through what has helped me be successful, and I think really it comes down to a couple things. I've been pretty conservative with our financials. So as we've gone, I've only grown at the speed at which we could grow. I'm not a big fan of debt. I'm not anti-debt necessarily. I think mortgages are a great tool where you can build wealth. But if you're going and get credit card debt and lines of credit that are at 10%, 17%, and then you all of a sudden don't have the revenue to come back at, you can be out of business pretty quick. And I've grown fairly slowly and consistently.
I mean, 2016 kind of sounds recent, but it's 8 years now.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But so that's one thing, is we've not grown too fast. And that has allowed me the opportunities to take advantage of things that come up as like, hey, this could be a possibility. Like, for example, the gutter business. I was meeting with the guy who owned the gutter business. I was watching the cash, and I was going, he's growing too quick.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and then eventually came down to, we can help solve his problem as long as we can ensure that you're going to grow at the speed at which you can grow, and we'll then have equity in that business. And that has allowed me to do that. Same with the other business. I was able to see an opportunity and then chase down it and then create a deal. And I'd say one thing I'm pretty good at is making creative deals. Like even the structure of buying out my father-in-law, the structure of buying these other two businesses. If you can negotiate and find ways to transfer risks to other people, then you can do things.
How did you come by that skill? Is it reading or
necessity?
Ideas or
necessity? Yeah, because I didn't have the funds to do a lot of things. Yeah. So basically, I was like, I did read a lot of books on how to buy businesses. I read a bunch of different things, but functionally, creativity is the only limitation. Right? If you're going to buy a house and you had a person who's willing to loan you the money, you can shift the risk around. If mortgages might be a little different because there's a lot of laws related to mortgages, maybe a bad example. But with the business, I can go to a business owner and say, hey, will you finance this deal? Here's my goal for your business. I'm going to take it and I'm going to grow it by this much and this much and this much. And I'm going to sweeten the pot for you because you're taking the risk too. I'll give you a percentage of it when I take it and run with it and grow it. Right? So if you tell them your vision and paint the picture of where you want to go and
just figure out who can you help, what do they want, even if they don't know they want it.
And then you can also say, hey, I'm not personally guaranteeing this, but you're buying into me because I painted a picture of where I'm going. Are you willing to take that ride with me and take that risk? And so worst case scenario, if my business doesn't work that I went and bought, they can take back the business and I lose a very small down payment, right? So there's things you can do if you're creative and you're willing to negotiate and talk through things and find the right deals where you can make things happen. The same thing was true of building a house. Like, if you want to get a construction loan, it's quite the process to actually get a construction loan, get it approved, do all that stuff. I found a creative deal where I went, all right, I know a guy who knows a person who owns some land. I went and knocked on the lady's door, took my kids and said, hey, can we buy your lot next to you off market and, make a deal happen, then finance the build ourselves and then refi after because it's easier than doing the construction loan, right? 100%. So if you're willing to be creative and you have the drive to continually look for opportunities, that's when they arise. And I probably looked at 30 businesses before I bought the one I bought in Olympia. And that's, I think, the thing that's the key is you got to be always looking for those things.
Yeah,
and
patience.
then be willing to say no to 29 of them to do the one that does work.
Yeah.
Because if you bought one of the ones that's not good, then you might just rush into something that's not smart.
Now, you're not necessarily looking to be long-term partners with these people you're buying out. Do you have a goal for kind of when that buyout happens?
Actually, so there is a little bit of that, but it depends. Again, creatively.
Right.
The Olympia deal, I bought the business in terms where he will be a long-term partner.
Okay. Yeah.
He had to sell for a unique circumstance. He had a religious conviction in his church that he goes to where he had to sell the business. But he could continue to operate the business if somebody else owned the technology. He's Mennonite background and a great guy, but he had to sell the business, but he wants to continue to grow it and carry on his vision. And so I was able to create a deal where he can work, run it, pay a salary, percentage of profits indefinitely as long as he runs it. And then basically we're aligned incentive-wise. And that is a key thing with a key employee. You have to align incentives to where they're going to line up and do the things you need them to do to make the business profitable, not have skewed incentives where it's tied to only revenue and then the business is not profitable. Right. They're getting large payments and then I'm not. Yeah. Right. So there's, and then the gutter business, there's a short-term plan of him being able to buy us back out so that we exit, but long-term is the goal. I want to do business with people who are long-term employees, and if we do buy one, then get somebody in there who can be tied to the bottom line and run it for us. So
So you're looking, obviously there financial metrics, but there's a value alignment too.
Yes, 100%.
That has to go with that. Yeah.
The Olympia deal, I talked to him in June of 2021, and we didn't close until June of 2022. It took a year of figuring out if we're going to be in alignment culturally. Right. Can we work together for a long time? And there were points along the way where we thought it might not work out, and part of that was value. Part of it was, just are we sure that we're on the same page of where we want to go with this thing? And then but it takes patience and time, and that could have and it cost money too. You had to do diligence and spend a lot of time digging into all this stuff. But it's. If you're not consistently working at those things, you're just not going to do the deal. You're not going to get it done. Yeah.
I don't know if you happen to catch any of the episode with Brett Baker, but he talked a lot about just patience and in growing your business and not growing too quick, and he hit on that a lot.
Yeah, that sustainable growth thing.
Right.
That was actually interesting. Ben Metzger, who works for me now, was telling me about that episode and about the guy because he knows him as well.
Right.
And we both kind of went through and looked at the different businesses and we calculated out what we think it could be. And there's variables, but we were using that thing from the podcast that was helpful. So it's great. Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
No royalties, Brett. Sorry.
Yeah. No royalties.
Yeah.
Although I do want to meet him. So
okay. We can hook you up.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm gonna circle back to this, but I just had a thought. I am curious how you got, what did that? So Barrier Tech was your first company.
Yep.
What was what grew you guys? Was it just doing what you were doing well and then sales, or what grew you guys over the years?
The minute that I said I'm not going to do the installing side anymore, we grew a lot because I'm going to focus on
because
sales.
You started installing.
Right. And so the first thing was me getting out and saying I'm going to focus solely on sales to grow that. That was the biggest thing that jumped us initially.
And what were sales for you Like, was it phone calls or connections, meetings,
no,
or LinkedIn? Or
going to job sites and walking in and just talking to people and trying to figure out who the person who can make the decision. It was, I hate it to this day.
Yeah.
I still will occasionally go down and just go find a site that I've never been to and try to find the person. It's not fun, but that's what it was. It was going to, you find a crane, you see a new crane pop up, I'd go to that job site, walk on, find out who's the person, figure out what scopes of work are there, and then just talk to people. That whole first year was that. I just go to everyone. I had a CRM where we were tracking all these different ones, and I just worked my way through them.
And did you pitch right there, or did you arrange a meeting?
No, it would be pretty much on the spot. I'd say, hey, who's doing what scope? So you'd figure out who's doing what, and then I'd ask if I can send out a price. And then it might be some follow-ups to get the information I need. But, so it was, it was chaotic.
Yeah,
but,
and I cut you off there. Was there a second kind of step there you're going to add? Or
the next steps are just following up. And then as far as growth beyond that, so that was the first jump. The next jump was when I started to go, okay, there needs to be more than one salesperson.
Okay.
And that's where I started to bring on a couple sales guys who have been able to help with that. We also did start a Portland division, which has helped growth. We started in a new market, sent one of my best employees down there, and he's really taken off and run well with it. I'm actually going down there tomorrow to meet with him. That's cool. But he's done great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, so coming back to the big picture of your creativity, looking for deals, that patient growth, and I think this is a tough one to think about, but I'm curious, as you're thinking about, if that's your strength, if that's what helps you guys do well, how do you continue to improve in that quality?
Yeah.
Especially with something like creativity.
Yeah. Creative deals is my strength, but the thing that I think will allow us to do that is getting the systems all dialed in, which has been kind of a bottleneck for us. And that's when we acquired this last business, it started to break things, because you're like, oh, we got to have better systems in place because I can make the deal happen, but then things might go crazy. So that's we basically had to take a pause and go, all right, no deals can happen for a little while.
Yeah.
We needed to dial in our systems, our processes, how we're going to onboard a new business. That was the first time I bought one where I actually did a real transaction.
Yeah.
Where lawyers were involved, lots of different things, versus the other business I bought with the fireproofing. Right. Basically, that entity just closed, and it was a small little business, and we acquired them and rolled in, and there was no branding and all that stuff. The Olympia one was that. So now we're getting that stuff all set up so that we have a playbook that, hey, I'm going to keep looking for deals, we can evaluate them, but when we get a deal to go through, here's the steps that we're going to take to get everything operating smoothly. But
having those systems allows you to make that creativity effective.
Our speed of growth is basically now paused because we did that deal. We could do something where we start a business, but I can't really acquire a good business at the moment unless I go and raise money, and I'm not really looking for partners. I'd rather just grow sustainably at the rate we are, and then if a deal arises and it seems like it'd be a good use of capital and time, then we might pursue it. But right now we just need to operate efficiently.
Daniel,
get things done.
What where people talk about recession, as a real possibility in 2023, and as a deal maker, that's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes. Sometimes it creates many opportunities. What are your thoughts about that?
I go back and forth all the time with Barrier Tech. Just to give it perspective for each business, Barrier Tech, I have our contracts locked up through 2023, and we have jobs into 2024 because it's new construction. And once a building's in the ground and starting to come up, they're going to finish it unless something crazy happens. Right. So we have some certainty there. The consumer-facing one, we've seen a decline in sales, and we've seen things slow down, and it's kind of uneasy because you don't know what's going to happen. Right. And all that found home equity was great to put to work on your paver patio last year and the year before. And this year, will it be the same way? That's a question I'm not sure about. But we're looking at it from the perspective of people will still do it. If we're the highest quality installer in the trades, that sets you apart pretty quick. If you come showing up, dressed nice, can sell well, communicate well, you can overcome things. They're not just going to stop work altogether. There might be a slowdown, but we have the cash to weather that storm, and to hopefully what I've read, but I haven't lived through a recession, is it's easier to buy leads at that time because people start to chicken out on spending money on marketing.
Right.
And there's a guy, Colin Hathaway, who he owns a bunch of plumbing businesses here, Southwest Plumbing and a handful of others, and he talks about that. They've actually done well because they know their marketing well enough to where they know they can spend some money on some things in recessions where they can get leads cheaper, they can get in the door quicker and close deals and actually operate efficiently during a recession. I don't have the experience. I started working in 2012, so
Right.
I'm gonna be learning with everybody else.
Yeah.
But we'll figure it out and we'll make it work. And my thing is we just need to be conservative financially to where we aren't overextending ourselves and then we're really hurt. Which we have a fairly healthy runway with that stuff, and most of our costs are variable to where we can start to make changes if we need to.
Yeah. I've heard something similar. That liquidity is key when you enter into these kind of periods, because if you're illiquid and you start to get pinched, then you've got to liquidate at depressed values. Whereas if you've been conservative, you've got some liquidity, then you can weather the storm.
Hey, right. I'm interested in being on the other side of that, where hopefully we can buy some things on cheap.
Right.
But we'll see. I don't know. It's so different than anything else I've ever seen, just economically, and the uncertainty of what's going to happen. I mean, are they gonna actually start to taper down rates, or are they gonna keep them? You guys are playing in that world all the time, but I watch it too because I'm going. That directly affects home prices, which directly impacts people's willingness to spend money on their home. So, yeah.
Well, I've seen also there's a ton of commercial real estate debt that's coming due in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be, hugely impactful on what happens there in the next couple of years. So.
Definitely grateful for the fact that we live in the area we live in with at least the big boys around Amazon, Microsoft.
Right.
Those guys, they at least give us some level of cushion too.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, well, I will close with a question kind of related to our thesis that work is good, and I'm curious what you would say about just on a day-to-day in your role. What is it about your work? Is it the providing for your family? Is it and it could be multiple things. Is it the actual services your companies provide? The competition? What is it that is your favorite part or a favorite part about the work that you do?
Yeah, that's a big question. But I think, to me, the amount of responsibility as you add employees and as you add team members and as you have different things that are going on, it adds to the importance of what you're doing, because it's not just my family that depends on me delivering. If I make fiscally irresponsible decisions, I could have to lay off 30 guys, 40 guys. So, and then they're trying to figure out life. So that kind of adds to the purpose. But the thing that I love the most is just painting a picture of where we're going and then getting a team together and trying to get there.
Yeah.
Like the activity of December's my favorite month of the year. Planning, figuring out what you're going to do next year, figuring out all that stuff, and then working hard for a year to get to that point. Yeah. I just view it as a game that is a good game, and we're providing great services to people. We're providing great jobs to people, and we're making the economy around us go. And it's just a fun thing to be a part of. I love it.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
great answer. Cool. Well, thanks, Daniel. Thanks,
Chad. Thanks, man.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Work is Good. If you enjoyed it, share it, leave a review, and listen next week.